Baldinger joining us right now. Baldy, I just checked my email and saw that you just got off an interview with JJ McCarthy. Is there any way that JJ McCarthy could be a Denver Bronco tomorrow night?
If they trade up, I don't think he's going to be there at 12. You have to go up pretty high to get him. He's an impressive guy. I mean, just I think he takes to coaching. He's been successful everywhere. He was a 5-star recruit. He's a little tough to evaluate because there's not a volume of throws that there is with other guys. But when you sit down and talk to that guy, I mean, he's got a lot going for him. I think you could get him, but you're going to have to move up in front of some people, I think, that are very interested in his talent.
It seems like, JJ McCarthy, one of the reasons he is rising up draft boards, despite not having all the throws on tape that other guys have, is because of how well he interviews. That's one of those things you hear over and over and over again. And obviously, you just talked to him. It sounds like it went well, but what in particular did you hear, or how did he? Why did it go so well? Why does he interview so well?
Well, I think first of all, he listens really well. So he doesn't have anything on autopilot. He listens, he processes, and then he answers your question. But he's just got a lot of depth to him. There's a lot of depth. You can tell that he thinks through things, very quickly. And then he just has a great deal of insight. I asked him, I said, great quarterbacks, you go back to, Manning and these guys that are great quarterbacks, they have memories like elephants. So there's a moment in the semifinal game against Alabama. They're losing fourth quarter. They're down 20-13. It's 4th and 2 at their own 33-yard line. So I just pulled that play out of my hat, and I'm like, because it changed the whole game. And they lose. They don't make the play. They don't win that game. And he just said, Baldy, we've been practicing that play for a month. We're just ready for the right situation. We've done it. We've practiced it. He knew exactly the play I was talking about. Went right to it. Described it perfectly. And so I just think that's kind of what happens in these interviews. You start going through certain plays and moments in big games and what you saw and all in reaction time, all that stuff. I think that's a big part. And then I think Harbaugh's done a great job just prepping him all the whole way. Just knows how to coach a quarterback, being a quarterback himself and all that. So I think he's been well coached, and I think he thinks very quickly on his feet, like quarterbacks have to be able to do.
Happening with JJ McCarthy, where he goes, how he does. We'll keep talking about quarterbacks, and the Broncos have a new one in their quarterback room. Zach Wilson, were you surprised by that trade? And then also, does that change what they're going to do or their plans for tomorrow night?
It doesn't change the plans. I was a little surprised because I think the Jets were going to cut him. So I think anybody could have picked him up. So to flip a 6th or 7th round pick, whatever it was. But I think, that's what happens. If you're drafted number 2 overall, you get 10 years to prove that you can't play. So now he's on his second team with an elite coach. If anybody could get whatever's inside of Zach that could be good, maybe it's Sean Payton. So take a look at him, take a flyer. I'm sure that there's a lot of talent still there, maybe untapped. Maybe he just needs to be with a better coach, better system, and maybe they can find it. So it's worth a flyer on him.
Baldy, with one day before the draft in the first round, how many quarterbacks do you think end up going in the top 10? I'm just trying to identify what spot the Broncos would have to get to if JJ falls, if Michael Penix Jr. falls. How many teams do you think actually do end up taking a quarterback early?
Well, I think they might go 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh. So I think Arizona or New England could trade out. I think it's possible. I think they'll listen to offers. Arizona has 6 of the top 90 picks. It doesn't make much sense to trade back. But if they traded with the Giants and they got to pick 6 instead of 4, they might be able to do a little bit with that. I don't think that trading back to Minnesota at 11 helps them because I think the receivers that they covet would be gone. That wouldn't, and so then you might be at the 4th best receiver. So I think they're going to go 1, 2, 3, and maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. But I think Michael Penix is going to go between 8 and 13. He could go to Denver or Las Vegas. He could go as early as Atlanta or to Minnesota. I think there's a great deal of interest in him, and for a lot of reasons. I've been high on him all along, but I think his sweet spot, because I don't think Seattle believes. I think Seattle's very interested. Ryan Grubb is the offensive coordinator now in Seattle. He coached him in Washington. Seattle doesn't believe he'll be there at 16. So I feel like between 8 and 13, Mike Penix could be gone. So we could see 5 of the top 13 picks, quarterbacks.
Wow, that would be pretty crazy. I'm curious because it seems like Joe Alt's pretty much become the consensus top tackle. There's some people who disagree with like Latham around there. Where do the tackles stand in your mind? If you had to rank like your top 3 as of right now, who would you be your top 3 off the board?
I would probably go Alt, Fuaga, and probably Fashanu. I think those Olu, in some order. JC is right there. He's right. But he's a right tackle. I think Fuaga can play both sides. I think Olu could play both sides, although he's been an elite left tackle. I think that order. I think Fautano is going to be a Pro Bowl guard. I think you could get tremendous value out of Mims or Guyton, but it might take a little while. I think they both need, they both are extremely talented. And down the road, they might be the 2 best in the whole draft just because of their talent, their length, how they move. But that might not happen right away. I think Joe's the consensus first because, I'm a little biased. My brother played with his dad in Kansas City for a long time, and I feel like I know the family. But he's just an incredible technician. Joe Thomas wasn't the best tackle in football. He's in the Hall of Fame because he was the best technician over a 10-plus year period of time. He never missed a play. So, but Joe, and I feel like Joe is a lot like Joe Alt's a lot like Joe Thomas. Like he's just a great technician right now, but not the most talented, tackle in this draft. But from a technical standpoint, like he's where his hands, his head, like how his feet match up, like all those things, it's hard to argue with.
Because this draft is so packed with offensive talent, whether it be quarterback, O-line, or wide receivers, there's a real possibility that the Broncos could have the number 1 defensive player on the board, when they pick at 12. In your opinion, who would that be?
Oh, the best defensive player in this draft is Latu. Latu. He's the best player in this draft. Best defensive player. He's just ready to go. Like his game looks a lot like T.J. Watt's, Max Crosby's. He can get into any position. He knows how to defeat every block. He's slippery as can be. Like he's a very talented player. You have to get past whatever the medical issues are. He just played 2 full years at UCLA without any issues. Some teams might still be wrapped up in all that, what happened up at Washington. But I think he's the best defensive player in this draft. And it won't surprise me to see him being the first defensive player taken in this draft.
All right, Baldy, final prediction time. And maybe not prediction, but what do you think would be the best case scenario for the Broncos in the first round? Is it trading up to go get a certain quarterback? Is it staying put at 12? Is it trading back? What player and spot do you think would be the best case scenario for Denver?
I think the best case scenario is Latu at 12 and trading back into the bottom of the first round and taking Bo Nix. I think that would be – I feel like they'd get the quarterback and they'd get a star defensive player, and that would be a pretty good – that'd be a pretty good day one for the Broncos if something like that happened.
So we just did our last mock draft before the actual draft, and all of the defensive players were on the board at number 12 for the Broncos. I took Quinyon Mitchell over Laiatu Latu. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad of a pick was that?
That's not a bad pick. I mean, Quinyon's a great – honestly, you could debate Quinyon and Terrion, Arnold, all you want, back and forth. I think Quinyon has a little bit even more quick twitch. Like his break on the ball is exactly what you need. If you want to play zone and just break on a ball and just clue the quarterback, if you want to play press man, he could do that. Arnold had a phenomenal season at Alabama. I mean, it's everything. His vision, his tackling was crisp. He bounced back when he did get beat. Like he didn't let anything hang on him. that's not a bad pick because it's either Quinyon or Terrian are going to be the first corner taken. I just feel like you could get more value from a star defensive end right now.
Baldy, love the insight heading into the draft. I want one final scouting report from you before we let you go. Take us back to 1982 and evaluate an offensive lineman coming out of Duke, Brian Baldinger. What are we seeing on tape from him?
You saw a 2-year starter at guard, a converted tight end. I felt like my life ended when they moved me from the tight end room to an offensive guard. I thought that was the end of the world. I honestly thought there was like the whole thing was going to blow up. But if you got a 2-year starter that was still learning the game, but a pretty good pass blocker. I played for Steve Spurrier. We threw the ball more than we ran it, which was different than most college teams at the time. So they were going to get they were getting a feisty, converted, athletic guard that had to get bigger and stronger. But there was a lot of fight in that dog, and that's what I put Dallas that year.
Man, and we love the fight and the dog that you bring on our show every week, Baldy. Thank you so much. Enjoy the draft, and I can't wait to get your insight after the draft on who the Broncos pick.
For sure. Let's get that done next week.
Right on. Love it. Awesome.